nearly everything we do in our daily life, from driving a car to cooking a meal to actually sitting on the computer, shuts our chest off and creates varying degrees of tension in our neck and shoulders. And inevitably, over a period of time, there is tightness in our shoulders that we don't even know about. We also do hold a lot of tension in our jaw, in our shoulders, in our neck because of the body's nervous system stress mechanism. And what that really does is that when you're anxious, your heart rate goes up, your pupils dilate, your muscles contract, and the jaw tightens. And before we know it, our shoulders actually start moving up or hiking up towards the ears. Now, the good news is that you can actually reverse this stress response mechanism and release this deeply held tension in the chest and in the shoulders, which doesn't even just make us feel great physically, but even mentally. We're going to now demonstrate some of my favorite poses to release tightness in the neck and shoulders. So now we're going to begin with a classical standing wide-legged forward fold. And in this, we're going to be actually interlacing our arms and stretching them behind our back. So the first and foremost thing about any standing posture is how strong your feet are going to be in it and what should be the position of the feet. So first is that we open the feet at least 2 to 3 feet wide. So let's start with the feet. Look at her toes. Right now they're moving out. What we need to really work with is moving the toes parallel towards this mat and then slowly moving the thumbs in slightly, and then pressing on the outer edges of the feet so that there's a strength that comes in through really the kneecaps being drawing up, and this strength is going to help us hold us more comfortably when we're going to come into this forward fold. The next thing that we need to really understand is the interlock of our palms. So how are we going to interlock our palms? Raman can turn around and show that to you. Turning around. So you interlock your palms where your palms are actually facing your back. Once you get that, we'll come back. Or you're feeling like as though your hamstrings are tugging very, very deeply. Then you give yourself a nice micro bend in the knees. If not, you can straighten the knees back. Feel strong again from the arches of your feet. Hinge forward. So let's get the full asana this time. Coming back. Now, when this action is happening, what we need to focus on is the length of the arms. So you keep stretching your outer arms upwards, but you are dropping your chest down towards the floor. The length of the neck is going down towards the floor, releasing that, of course, and work a lot from the wrists. So pull the wrists up as well. The action really is chest reduced down to the floor and the arms moving up. This is the time when we actually get a nice deep stretch in our trapezius and in our neck. Also, the most important part in this is that if you're feeling that you are getting a little pain, then you can always bend your elbows. Again, if you're feeling a little pain in your lower back, when you are going to get into your posture, you can always give a very small micro bend in your knees to protect your lower back and your hamstrings. The important thing is to stay in this posture for at least 7 to 8 breath cycles where you're completing it, focusing a lot on the exhalation, focusing a lot on how to release the neck. The important part is we're loosening the shoulders, we're loosening our neck here, and when we want to come out, the action is the same. We release gently, bend our knees very, very generously, put our hands on our hips and slowly rolling up. This is when we are not challenging our lower back at all. And this is actually a great start to your tight neck and shoulders. So we move into the second posture for tight neck and shoulders, and that is Garudasana for only the arms. Let's begin with the feet again because that's very crucial, as I said, for a standing posture. In this, the feet are actually just a foot apart. So you can measure it. Raman, you can do it with me. Measure it. And then plant your foot with your toes moving in. I'm going to keep repeating on some very, very crucial tips that are going to be seen for or good for beginners really through and through. In this again, importantly is to move your toes in, your thumbs in, and keeping a nice distance between your feet, which is just a foot apart. After that, draw your kneecaps up and lift your arms up. Lengthen from the middle finger, really trying to move out. So there's a nice length coming in your arms. Try and straighten your elbows and move your elbows in. So if your elbows are moving towards the right and left. Try and move them facing the floor. Very, very simple again. So a lot of us have a lot of stiffness. So we see that our arms don't really rotate fully. Try bringing your elbows facing the floor. That's when you're getting a nice rotation in your wrists, a nice rotation in your upper arms. Once you get this action of a length, form your middle finger out, elbow facing down. Then, standing strong, we now move our right elbow over the left elbow, keeping it nice and tight, and then bend our elbows and bring our palms together with our fingertips facing up to the ceiling. So if I see the correction here, normally what happens is you get your fingers moving or slanting like this. See if you can actually draw your elbows away from the body and then rotate with your fingertips coming up. Once you have this action, the important part to remember is that I would prefer that you actually shut or close your eyes in this for a few seconds. We are focusing on 8 breath cycles through and through for all of these asanas right now, because we are assuming that you are beginners. In this, again, idea is to draw the elbows out as much as possible away from your chest and the fingertips facing nice and straight up towards the ceiling. Once you do that, understand Garudasana with your arms as actually a very intense stretch for your trapezius, for your outer shoulder and your upper arms. It's only when you do not drop your elbows will you get a nice stretch. So keep moving your elbows out. You can't really see this action after you stretch, but you can do it. You can feel it with your eyes closed. Keep making sure that the elbow is moving out. Keep it intense. Keep it nicely stretched out. Breathe into it for a few seconds. Enjoy the posture. And to move out of Garudasana, you just have to simply release your arms, release your elbows, and slowly move your arms down. We're going to continue with our standing postures for our tight neck and shoulders, and this is the cow face pose, again only for the arms. In this, we are strong on our feet, so cue into your last 2 postures about your feet, about your thumbs, about the strength of the arches, about the kneecaps. Then let's focus on what we're doing with our arms really in this. In this, we are going to be moving or lengthening our right arm up towards the ceiling. Remember that when you're lengthening, lengthen the entire side of the body and stretch up from the middle finger even more, as much as possible. The more you are lengthening your arm, the more this pose or posture will become even easier or more effective for you. Once we get a nice deep length, we are going to now move it at the back. So what we can do is actually show you how to move it on the back. So Raman, come back. Once the arm is nice and lifted, keeping the other arm on the side, we're going to move the arm up, keep your arm straight, elbow straight, super. And then slowly bring your palm in the middle of your shoulder blades. So these are your 2 triangle shaped shoulder blades. You're going to be moving your arm in the center somewhere if possible, of course. So coming down, placing that, and once we get that action, we're going to stretch the other arm out. Again, the action is really to draw your hand and your middle finger out. So drawing your left hand out and nicely rotating it on your back, bringing your palm behind, and what you're really attempting is to actually hold your arms and clasp it. See, if you can't do that, that is why props are so important and so actually effective, is that I can always give her a nice belt to hold on. It's almost like you're giving length to your arms to reach out. The only thing you need to remember about a belt is like you are trying to tear the belt from the center. That is the action that you want in this posture. The other thing that you have to understand is, so release that, or you can come back, turning around. Let's start with doing that again. Coming back faster. And again holding. Just focus in, because it will take just another second for you to understand what happens. A lot of us actually start getting very tense in the throat and in the neck. So soften the throat by dropping your chin a little. The other thing which is very important is that for a lot of us, these elbows start dropping, our neck starts crumbling. Push your shoulder out. Push your elbow out and make sure the other elbow is moving out as well. Again, clasp onto that and move like you're trying to open really the chest. Actually, the cow face pose is a very, very deep stretch for the shoulders. It's actually an internal and external rotation of the entire shoulder that's happening, which we don't get in our normal life. So if we actually move our shoulders like that, there's a lot of oiling and lubrication that happen in the joints. Very, very important for women to do, because they are affected with a lot of osteoporosis. And to come out of the posture, you just have to release your clasp, release that, and slowly rotate your arms back into position. So let's move out and release. Now in the cow face, whichever arm you lengthened and moved back, obviously we have to focus on doing the other side as well. So remember, on your right and your left, focus on holding and clasping on, softening your throat for about 7 to 8 breath cycles again, and then change your side and do it on the other for another 7 to 8 breath cycles. So after we've done a few standing postures for our tight naked shoulders, I'm going to actually move Raman into a comfortable tabletop. In a tabletop, she comes on her knees and on her palms. So Raman, let's go. So what we need to focus on a tabletop are a couple of things as correction for her and any beginner really, is that our shoulder and our wrist need to be parallel to each other. They're sort of stacked under each other. So you actually, Raman, have to move your wrist ahead so that it is parallel to each other. Your knees have to be open slightly, so again widening them a bit would help you get more stability. The feet have to face a certain angle, so you flatten your feet nicely and make sure that the shins are also pressing down into the earth. Now this is where you get stability for this pose. This posture needs a little bit of understanding, because even though it is an easier version of the downward facing dog, it is, according to me, also much gentler on your wrists. So anyone facing a lot of tight neck and shoulders also does complain a lot about wrist problems. So this one is of course a modified, much easier version, which is called the dolphin pose. Once we get that right, what we need to focus in on is what we are going to do with the elbows. The elbows are now coming where your palms are placed. So she's now going to drop her elbows there, dropping your elbows, and placing the forearm, which is this, onto the floor. Right. The other thing that you have to really understand is that the elbows cannot be moving out. So you have to align them by moving in. This is when you get a solid foundation for your upper body as well. And your fingers should not be moving out. They should be parallel, or your index finger should be facing the mat in front and parallel to each other. Once we get all these actions right in the tabletop, now you're ready for the dolphin pose. So nothing can be done without alignment, because you could actually hurt yourself more and tighten those neck and shoulders. So make sure that you actually understand all these crucial smaller tips that I'm giving. To come into the posture, she's now going to tuck her toes in. So tucking your toes, tucking actually is a very simple action. So flatten your toes again and now tuck them again. So focus in on the tuck, and from here press very, very deeply into your palms, into your forearms. Only when you press deeply can you get a nice lift off the floor. So pressing into it, Raman now is going to get a little energy from the earth really. Tucking the toes in, now lifting your heels up. Lifting your knees up. Now for any beginner, just see what's happening. Her knees are dropping down. So what we're going to do is actually help her lift her heels up a little more, draw her knees upwards and move her shoulders away. So the minute you move your shoulders away from the floor is when you get a nice sort of height in the hip. So the important part is not to make sure that your shoulders are dropping to the front of the body. Move the shoulders away, lift your navel up towards your body and move your tailbone up to the ceiling. Draw your kneecaps up is only when you're actually fine in the posture. Again, we're focusing on moving the chest down towards the floor a little more and keeping our neck soft. So if you need a padding under that, you can keep a blanket and rest in this posture for about 7 to 8 good breath cycles. To come out of the posture, you just have to bend your knees and drop your knees to the floor. Come back in Balasana or the child's pose so that you can stretch your lower back in case there's any trouble there, and slowly lifting out of the dolphin pose. So So we are actually at the end of our tight neck and shoulders sequence, in which the last one is actually the most releasing and my favorite. The happy puppy pose is actually, or the extended happy puppy pose is actually a very non-weight bearing pose, in which we are actually lengthening the side body or the sides of the torso and getting a nice length in the underarms and the upper arms, and getting a nice drop and intense stretch in your upper back, chest and shoulders. So for this, again, like the last posture, we're going to come into tabletop, in which we have to really be careful of the distance of the knees. So make sure there's a nice comfortable distance of your knees, and then bring your arms or palms in line with your shoulders. So let's see what that is. This wrist has to be in line with the shoulder, so just be careful on that. And in extended happy puppy pose, we're going to start with a focus where the feet are tucked in, so you're nice and comfortable and strong. And she's going to now move her arms and walk her arms out, where till her elbows are actually straight. So don't bend your elbows in or out. They should actually keep lengthening and keep straightening. So walking them out as far as possible. So do about good 2 to 3 big steps. Yes, just see there's a nice big walk that's happened. And from here, what I'm going to make you do, as if you want a really nice intense stretch, what I really do is I open my arms nice and wide. So opening it nice and wide, and then I even open my fingertips nice and wide. So you press onto your palms, and now the action is to go back. Your hip is moving back to your heels, and while you're doing that, make sure that your shoulders are also moving back, and the chest is coming towards the floor, and the chin is coming on the floor. So what's really happening is a beautiful stretch here, nice length in the underarms, and the press of your palms is getting her a nice traction in the side body as well. The idea really of this posture is, again, like I said, great opening of your upper back. If you feel that your neck is feeling strained, you can always bring your forehead on the floor, depending on your own level of, or the threshold of pain you're going through at that point. And to come out of the posture, wait, we're going to go at least focusing on taking a few breaths, intensifying the stretch, moving the chest closer to the floor, drawing the shoulders away more and more. Focus on the hip, that should be moving back. The hip should be nicely or high enough from your knees, and start pushing your hip back so that there's a nice length in the spine as well. Another few breaths, focus on the release and the exhale a lot. And to come out of the posture, you have to simply walk your palms back, walking them back, and sit back in Balasana again to just sort of reduce a child pose. Mein aa jaiye. Reducing and relaxing completely to end your sequence for reducing the stiffness in your tight neck and shoulders.